Hi, and welcome to Thrive Thursday. Each week I share with you a recipe you can make using your freeze-dried food storage ingredients. And so don't worry about having to live off beans and rice. Gag, nobody wants to do that day after day after day, right? You can make gourmet, amazing meals using some of your food storage shelf-stable ingredients, especially when you use freeze-dried items like Thrive Life. If you've never heard of freeze-dried items or Thrive Life, basically freeze-dried foods have the highest nutritional value of any foods and the longest shelf life. They can last up to 25, 30 years on your shelf, unopened, in a can. They can sit there for 25, 30 years. They're amazing, and they have the best flavor of anything. You know how sometimes like canned vegetables or something, they're mushy or they have weird taste to them and stuff. Yeah, freeze-dried food's not like that. So definitely invest in some if you have not and you're interested in really having a good food storage. You want freeze-dried foods. So today I'm going to be showing you how to make this amazing, delicious to die for cream of asparagus soup. So this recipe, and without going into like my whole life history basically, because I hate that when blogs do that. That's why all my recipes on my blog are short, sweet, little, less than a paragraph intro and get to the point. Here's the recipe. There was a restaurant here locally in town and where I live, they had the best cream of asparagus soup. Well, they went out of business. And it was years later and I was just craving it. So I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna try. It can't be that hard, right? I'm just gonna make it. And this soup turned out to be the best. It's better than I remember their soup being. Everybody that's tried is like, this is the best soup I've ever had. So it's really good. Now, the recipe is on my blog. And as always, there's a link in this video below in the description that will take you to a printable version of the recipe, as well as there's a link to the Thrive Life, my Thrive Life website, where you can buy freeze-dried foods and ingredients. This recipe I'm going to alter a little bit because my basic recipe isn't made, it's like has heavy whipping cream and stuff like that, which is great. And you can find that in a powdered form for your food storage. But if you don't have that, and today I'm not using all technically shelf stable, I'm using butter and I'm using some Parmesan cheese I had in my freezer. Thrive Life does have a freeze-dried Parmesan cheese. I just don't have a big can open. So so you can use like all of these ingredients basically can be shelf stable. So don't let that throw you off a little bit. Today is what I'm putting in. You can definitely alter the butter I'm just using a stick of butter because it's convenient for today. But Thrive Life does have butter powder, so you could use that as well. Same with the heavy whipping cream. Milk, you can do the powdered instant milk. Remember, instant milk's for drinking, powdered milk's for cooking. So instant just tastes a little bit better. And where's your powdered milk? I don't know. Some people don't like the taste of that. Sour cream, I am using the Thrive Life sour cream, but basically we're just adapting this recipe, and I'm making a smaller batch because the recipe on my blog is for like my whole family and, you know, tons. So I'm just making it for lunch for my husband and the girls and I, so we don't need to make a bunch. So anyhow, without further ado, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a Thursday recipe. And let's turn the camera down. I'll show you how easy this is to make. So the first thing, I have a cube of butter that I've melted in my pan here. And to that, I'm going to add some freeze-dried, Thrive Life freeze-dried chopped onions. These onions are so wonderful. They're just minced to super tiny, and they make perfect additions to soups because they're so small your kids won't even know they're there, but they'll give good flavor. For this, you know what, I'm not even going to tell you the proportions because go off the recipe on my blog. That recipe is linked in the description of this video because I'll explain a little bit towards the end of the video. I actually ended up being off on my proportions, and so this was super salty. Here is the danger part. This is my mistake right here. So I have 1.5 cups of water, and I added 3 big tablespoons of chicken bouillon. I should have only added 1. My mistake. Normally for a big pot you would add 3, but I don't know what I was thinking, so do not add 3 tablespoons, just do 1. But basically, so we have our butter and our onions, and then we're gonna add the chicken bouillon. I'm gonna let it kind of dissolve and sit for a minute, and then bacon crumbles. So a lot of this, because I was reducing the original recipe that's on my blog, I was kind of eyeballing and I wasn't worried about measuring. I was just making enough for the girls and I to have for lunch. But like I said, I got that bouillon in proportions way off, so this turned out to be really salty, which I'll show you a trick that I did to help with that here in a minute. But add your bacon to it, let the bacon and the onions kind of saute up a little bit, and then you're going to add the freeze-dried asparagus to that. And you know, if you like a lot of asparagus, put a lot in. If you like it more creamy, put less in. I did roughly about 2 cups worth or so, just kind of eyeballing it, what looked good. And of course you can make this soup, you can make this recipe with all fresh ingredients as well. It is really a really good soup. And so saute up your asparagus, your bacon, your butter, your onion. I just kind of cook them a little bit together, especially with the freeze-dried asparagus, because allowing it to saute with the butter and the bacon and the onion for a little bit before you add liquid for it to rehydrate with just kind of helps it to absorb some of these flavors from the bacon and the butter and the onion. It just really makes it really, really good. So I just cook them for just a minute there together, and you can already see the asparagus starting to rehydrate a little bit just from the butter. But then we're going to add in our bouillon, our very, very salty, in this case, bouillon. Normally it's not that bad. And then we're going to add some milk as well. So now if you were doing this with your food storage, you can skip we're going to add heavy whipping cream next. Heavy whipping cream, if you don't happen to have that in your food storage, or the heavy whipping cream powder, you can just add more milk. It's okay. The heavy whipping cream is just going to make it more creamy, and it makes it a richer soup. But definitely you can just replace that with milk, with more milk if you want. Luckily, there's instant milk and powdered milk that are both pretty easy to have in your food storage. And you can check out, I had some other videos that I did using the instant milk from Thrive Life. We made it into homemade yogurt, and we made our own cream cheese even with the instant milk. So it's really cool. It's a great product to have on hand for that. So now that we got all of our ingredients, we're going to, I'm going to add a little bit of sour cream too. So I just finished off the rest that I had in this container of the Thrive Life sour cream. Again, the sour cream powder just makes it a little more creamy and gives it a little creaminess to it. The full recipe, and then I realized at this point, I tell you, I was off my game. I don't know what was wrong with me. I normally am so focused and just paying attention, but I forgot to add flour. So you'll see the original recipe on the blog has you add flour before you add your liquid. So I forgot that till I got to this point. So what I did, I just added some of the bechamel, the Thrive Life bechamel sauce. Okay, so that's what this sauce, it makes wonderful. Because basically adding the flour to the butter and everything and then adding the milk, that's what you're doing, is you're making a bechamel sauce. And so it was okay that I had forgot to add it in. I had that Thrive Life bechamel sauce powder, so I just added that instead. Easy cheesy. So if you want, you can use that, or you can do what it says on the blog and add flour. Either one will work. They both achieve the same thing. And then you're going to add your Parmesan cheese. So at this point, this is all your ingredients. That is the soup. So at this point, it's literally just about cooking it till the soup thickens to your desired thickness and the asparagus is fully rehydrated. Just give it a few minutes to simmer and you're good to go. Now, this was where I tasted the soup and woo-wee, was it salty. So I'm going to show you a trick my grandma taught me. You get a potato and peel it, and then just slice the potato and put the potato chunks into the soup. The potato will absorb the extra salt. And so if you ever have a soup or a stew that's too salty, add a couple of potatoes to it, and that'll solve that problem. So that's what I did for this. My cooking, it wasn't a cooking fail. It was just a expert chef mistake, right? That's what we're going to call it. A happy little accident, because now you have a couple potatoes you can choose to eat or pull out of your soup, either way. But that's it. You pretty much just simmer the soup until it gets as thick as you want it, and it is good to go. So let me show you what the final product looks like once we had it all dished up. And there you have it. So look at this nice thick cream of asparagus soup. I guess I better not tilt the bowl too far. So yeah, in hindsight, I thought I could just reduce the recipe, but then I didn't reduce all the ingredients exact. Lesson learned. Not that this was a recipe fail, but even experienced cooks still have mistakes once in a while. So I am going to say defer to the recipe on my blog. That is the actual recipe, not the one I tried to reduce today. Because this one, woo-wee, it's a little on the salty side. But you have to remember, you've got bacon, Parmesan cheese, and bouillon, or the chicken stock. Those are all pretty salty foods. So I think my proportions trying to reduce it to a smaller amount were a little bit off. And but my trick with the potatoes, that's a trick my grandma taught me. So kind of a cool trick, if you are ever cooking something that's too salty, peel a couple of potatoes, slice them up, and they can be in big chunks or whatever, throw them in. The potatoes will absorb the salt. Kind of interesting. So let's try this and see how well it worked. I love cream of asparagus soup. And honestly, I don't mind things a little salty. My neighbor loves salt, so she'd probably love it even before I put the potatoes in. But I don't mind it a little salty, but I know my husband doesn't care for it too salty. Those potatoes helped a lot. It's still pretty salty. So in hindsight, on my little small batch, I think what I would do is like 1 tablespoon less of the chicken bouillon. And because and that's what I usually use is chicken bouillon with water. But I think I did the same amount of bouillon, but half as much water now that I think about it. So that would explain a few things. I mean, it's not bad. I'll still eat it, but it is, like I said, I like salt, but it is on the salty side. So learn from my mistake. Learn from my mistake when you make yours. Half as much of the chicken bouillon. So anyhow, this is a real easy soup. Like I said, you can make it every day. I turned off my burner and it's still simmering. You can make it with your everyday ingredients that you have in the fridge, or you can make it using freeze-dried or shelf-stable food storage ingredients. Pretty easy. All right, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next week with next week's recipe.